Chris Walken has been keeping something from you for 40 years. It took place on a boat near Catalina Island. That night, 3 people went to bed. They were the only ones who woke up. Natalie Wood was found floating in the Pacific Ocean. She was hurt and not breathing. Walken was there. Her husband was too. Someone heard yelling. Someone threw a glass. There is someone who knows what happened. At age 82, new information is coming to light. Information about anger, drinking, and a fight that ended in death. We thought we knew everything until the captain finally spoke. What Walken told the police changed everything. Christopher was not his real name. He was not even born into show business. Ronald Walken was born on March 31st, 1943, in Astoria, Queens. He was a shy kid. Rosalie, his mother, had left Glasgow to get away from poverty, and Paul, his father, came from Germany and opened a small bakery. During the war, Paul changed their last name from Walken to Walken. New York in the 1940s wasn't a good place to be German. People nearby talked quietly, and buyers were unsure. Walken always felt like he was being watched and was different. It helped him develop the creepy calm he would later bring to his most famous parts. The real surprise, though? He began not by playing, but by dancing. His mother signed him up for a neighborhood studio when he was only 3 years old. Walken learnt tap, dance, and acrobatics when most kids were still in nappies. By the age of 5, he could do tricky tricks. He was 7 years old and dancing at the Majestic Theater in Brooklyn for $50 a week. That's about $600 now. He did more than just move well. He moved like he knew that music could tell stories just as well as words. Every step, pause, and look he made on screen afterward came from those dance floors. And he wasn't by himself. Kevy and Glenn were Walken's brothers. All 3 were drawn into the exciting world of live TV in the 1950s. What's the deal? Just show up. They would hang out at NBC's Rockefeller Center studios until someone wanted furniture. It was kids who just stood there. It helped pay the bills at $7 a day. Walken ended up on the Colgate Comedy Hour and the wonderful John Acton, where he was often unknown but always interesting. He saw how the lights hit the face, how the directors gave cues, and how smoothly everything worked in show business. It wasn't exciting, but it taught me a lot about how the business worked. That wasn't all he did. Walken started going to the professional children's school in Manhattan when he was 10 years old. It wasn't like other schools. After lunch, classes were over, and the afternoons were spent practicing for performances, performing, singing, and dancing. In the halls, Liza Minnelli and Elliot Gould were among the other students. Not only did teachers rate papers, they also looked for talented students. Like an unofficial agent, the school took a cut of what the kids made. Walk around and learn quickly. It was a business. When you say, "Yo, we'll do something," you do it, not an excuse. He learned the discipline that would shape his work for decades. Then something completely out of the blue happened. He tamed a lion for a summer when he was 16. That's not a figure of speech. He read an ad in Variety, from a small show that needs someone to train their lions. He did get the job, though. Sheba, the lion, was an African female that weighed 300 pounds. People thought she was calm, but when you're locked up by yourself, there's no such thing. Walken did 2 shows a day, made $25 a week, and lived in a caravan. Afterward, he made a joke that no director could scare him after he had faced a lion. It wasn't theater school, but it taught him to be present, brave, and calm. Those traits stayed with them. Ronnie Walken was only 16 years old when he first went on Broadway. The play was called J.B. and was set in 1959. It was a retelling of the Book of Job. It wasn't just a school play. It won the Tony Award for Best Play and the Pulitzer Prize. A heavy story about trust and pain. Put on a show for New York reviewers and crowds. It was rare for a young boy from Queens to get a part in something this big. He was no longer doing singing numbers. This was important work in theater. He got a taste of what real acting was like. Deep, intense, and unforgettable. It was her first big step away from child parts and towards serious drama. In 1961, after 2 years, he started going to Hofstra University. But college didn't last very long. In less than a year, he quit. Why? Work. It wasn't just any job, it was a part in the off-Broadway revival of the 1941 show Best Foot Forward. The pay was nice. Besides that, it gave him real work with real players. He didn't drop out of college because he was bored. It was time for him to leave because the outside world was calling him, and he went with his gut. Even though it was risky, that decision paid off. There were more parts coming in. During the 1960s, he was pretty much always in theater. In Measure for Measure, he wrote about Shakespeare. In The Rose Tattoo, he wrote about Tennessee Williams. And then came The Lion in Winter. For his work, he won the Theater World Award, which was given to the most potential newcomers. It wasn't luck. It took years to learn every word, every feeling, and every movement. He was no longer just another actor. He was becoming a well-known name. It was in 1971 that he made his movie Beau and Sidney Lumet's The Anderson Tapes. Sean Connery played an ex-con who was planning a big theft in the movie. Walken played a different former prisoner who was part of the crew. Even though it was a small part, it was important. Before its time, the movie was one of the first to talk about surveillance and hidden cams, and Walken's presence was felt. Hollywood began to pay attention. After 6 years, in 1977, he showed up in Annie Hall. It was enough that he only had one scene. Besides Diane Keaton, he played Dwayne, who was her brother, in a seriotone. He talked about how he liked to imagine crashing his car into other cars. Scary, powerful, and impossible to forget. That one moment left a mark. The movie won 4 Oscars and 4 BAFTAs in the end. It took in more than $38 million at the theaters. People were also beginning to remember Walken's face. Then came The Deer Hunter in 1978, a movie about the Vietnam War that changed his whole life. He played Nick, a steel worker who becomes a fighter and gets hurt in the war. It took $15 million to make and got 49 million views. It won 5 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Supporting Actor for Christopher Walken. That part broke my heart. People were scared when they left the theaters. He was called by his folks after seeing it to make sure he was okay. That's how real it seemed to him. There is one scene in movie history that will never be forgotten, the Russian roulette scenes. He is made to play the game in a Vietnamese jail camp, played by Walken. Some people said it wasn't based on real events, but it was violent and scary. Reporters said that the Viet Cong never did that, but Roger Ebert said that the scenes were symbolic and should be shown. The story didn't have anything to do with war at first. It was about guys in Las Vegas who played roulette. Cimino changed it, put it in Vietnam, and made something scary out of it. The Deer Hunter is still thought to be one of the best Vietnam War movies ever, along with Platoon, Apocalypse Now, and Full Metal Jacket. After that show, Cimino wouldn't let him walk or go far. He cast him again in 1980, this time in Heaven's Gate. The movie was huge, but it crashed really badly. The budget was about $11 million, but it went over to $44 million and only made $3.5 million at the box office. The movie did so badly at the box office that the company that made IT was sold. With that movie, the age of films led by directors came to an end. Then there was a big scene out of sight. Things were supposed to be calm over the Thanksgiving holiday. Nicole Wood and her husband Robert Wagner had Christopher Walken join them on their 58-foot boat Splendor on November 28, 1981. They were going to Island Santa Catalina. They were also with Dennis Davern, who was the captain of the boat. At the time, Walken and Wood were shooting Brainstorm, and the trip was meant to be a break from work. But quickly things got dark. Natasha Wood was dead by the next morning. A mile from the boat, her body was found floating in the Pacific Ocean. She was 43 years old. She had bumps on her face and arms. A 0.14 was found in her blood. She also had drugs and pills for motion sickness in her body. There's no real proof of how she got into the water. Hollywood has been afraid of that quiet for more than 40 years. Captain Davern later said that for days something had been building up. He said Natalie and Walken had become close while they were making the movie. Not far enough. He said it wasn't just for the cameras that